Could you imagine in the last year of divisions if we have a three-way tie in both divisions?
That would be crazy. The only thing crazier than that is seeing two teams combined for 10 points, yet somebody had to win. That's our third game we're going to get into right now as Mississippi State defeats Arkansas 7-3. There was a football game played.
Yeah, and they played.
60 minutes, and it felt like it was 9 hours.
PB, the two biggest plays of the game were a jump ball that Mississippi State went and caught, and then a penalty on Mississippi State. It wasn't a penalty against Arkansas. It was a penalty on Mississippi State
that cost Arkansas arguably the game.
The scoop and score.
Afterwards, this from the official Arkansas Razorback football account. Coach Pittman relieved Dan Enos of his duties effective immediately. Kenny Guyton going to be taking over play calling duties for the remainder of the season. It's funny because I got a text saying, look at what happened with Arkansas, our group text. And I'm like, oh my gosh, did they part ways with Sam Pittman? I'm like, clearly, I don't think they're going to do that. And then I click on him, then sure enough, it's Dan Enos.
You and I both
was not a surprise.
We love Sam Pittman. There was a while there where Sam Pittman was like a weekly guest.
They were ranked wins.
Winning. There was a lot of positivity around. The culture was strong. But the feeling after the game, you and I were together in the studio on Saturday, the feeling after the game felt very reminiscent of some of the home games that the Arkansas Razorbacks lost when Chad Morris was the head coach there, the North Texas, the San Jose State, the Western Kentucky. This was a listless effort from a team that I thought was going to fight hard.
Yeah.
They have no offensive identity whatsoever. They have a quarterback that's a one-man band trying to get everything done with no help from the running game, no real assistance from the receivers to get open. And the frustration, you saw it on his eyes. He's rolling his eyes. Running backs missing, blitzers coming in protection. I just really feel for KJ Jefferson and what he's gone through this season.
6-game losing streak, the longest since those Chad Morris days. And again, there's certain things you always expect to see, right? Like for me, I expect LSU to have good secondary play. They haven't had it this year. I always expect Arkansas to have a great offensive line and be able to run the ball. That has not been the case. But on the flip side of this, let's give some damn credit to Zach Arnett and Mississippi State. That defense was incredible. Yes, I know that Arkansas has had some issues, but every single time they were swarming to the ball coming off the bye week. They didn't have their starting quarterback in Will Rogers. Mike Wright throws an interception from the jump.
That might have been the biggest series of the game. And the reason I say that is the interception puts Arkansas in a great field position, sudden change situation right out of the gate for Mississippi State's defense, and they find a way to force the field goal.
Correct.
To me, that was a big tone setter and a statement from Mississippi State's defense, who, let's be honest, hasn't been all that good this year based upon the returning experience they have on that side of the ball. The fact that Zach Arnett is still around there, the architect for that defense the last couple of years, has been tremendous.
Impressive. I want to hear from Sam Pittman one thing on the as we put a bow on this. Here he was right after the game.
I think you said on your first quarter interview that the team looked dead and you had to get a spark somehow. Was it surprising to you that there wasn't any more energy to open the game?
To be honest with you, I don't know if I was right on that or not. We just didn't play well, whether it was the first quarter offensively, whether it was the first quarter or the fourth quarter. So I don't know if I was really correct. I was mad when I was, being interviewed, but I don't know if that was the case or not. I don't know if we just didn't get physically whipped. Maybe it just had a bad day because he had a good week of practice. Again, I don't believe there's any type of injury there or anything of that nature. And again, all those things but it all falls back on me. And sitting here where we're sitting, it's not is not acceptable for anybody.
I don't know if the answer was prompted by a question about KJ Jefferson, but why are we talking about KJ Jefferson? You can only do so much if you're not having any protection, if you're not having any sort of assistance from the run game, if you're not having receivers getting open. Like, that wasn't a KJ Jefferson problem to me. That was a problem about the other 10 around him.
Yeah, and obviously Dan Enos, who is no longer there. I mean, it always felt like the hire Enos was a situation in which Bryles ends up leaving, and you're like, all right, we got to find somebody. And we're like, well, we're comfortable with Dan Enos, not because he was the best offensive quarter out there available. It was just like, we know who this guy is. He's been around this conference. Let's go ahead and hire him. Now you're going to pay $3 million of a buyout. But on the flip side of it, and even Sam Pittman talked about it in the first quarter interview, they needed to wake the hell up. I mean, this was the first game that they had. This was homecoming, the first game in a month, and yet there was zero juice. And not even necessarily, I thought the fans were pretty good. There was just no, motivation, it felt like. That was the first time I've ever seen an Arkansas team that looked like they were almost quitting. And I'd never believed that was going to be the case.
It's funny because the week before, you thought that was maybe more of an adverse situation going into Tuscaloosa, playing another 11 a.m. Central Time game where they came out of the gates and had 2 scoring drives early in the first quarter. But yeah, you're right. This team didn't look like they had a lot of juice. And, I go back to what I said about the offense, and I'm not trying to pile on Dan Enos, but what did they do to ever put KJ in a position to create some sort of advantages? Hey, we know you can't block for him in the pocket. Let's get him outside of the pocket a little bit. Let's run some route concepts that'll allow guys to get open a little easier. We're running 5-yard stop routes, 5 yards from the other guy they're playing zone and letting one guy cover 2. It's like, it really did very little to try to help out that offense and KJ specifically.
19 completions for 97 yards. That's
quarterbacks that threw for
do.
under 100 yards in this ball game going head-to-head. I mentioned it after the show on Saturday night, a reference that a lot of people may not have gotten, but it reminded me of the Nib High School principal when he was moderating the academic decathlon, and Billy Madison goes on that rant about the Industrial Revolution being like the puppy that lost his way, and at the end he says, during that rambling, you made no good points. We are all that much dumber for having listened to this, and may God have mercy on your soul. We watched that game. We'll never get those 3 hours back that we wasted watching the Mississippi State-Arkansas game on Saturday.
There's big changes made after this other game, Mississippi State and Arkansas. Czar, we were in studio for this, and that was a football game. There was football played. There were 60 minutes on the clock. Guys lined up in
about
pads.
160 minutes actually having to watch that.
Arkansas scored in the first couple minutes of the game, right?
Right for the get-go. Yeah, Mike Wright threw an interception on his first pass. They held him to a field goal, and that was it. Listless. How did you...
That's how I felt about it. There's that right there is how I felt about it. And, I mean, what a shame. That's a hard thing to have to do if you're Coach Pittman. Sam's one of the most respected people you'll meet in football, and having to go into Dan Enos' office and tell him that he's no longer the offensive coordinator and no longer working in Fayetteville, it just didn't work. I'm really surprised that they made such a transition in the way that their offense and the identity of their offense.
I agree.
And it didn't work. They need to get back. I know they don't have Kendall Briles anymore, but they need to get back to that sort of offense. That's where KJ Jefferson excelled.
It really was one of those things that, the 2 complaints I have about Sam Pittman, I love Sam Pittman. I love what he's done since taking over the program. But one, transitioning to an offense that didn't really fit your personnel necessarily, or understanding, maybe the culture of that offense the last couple of years. And 2, the talent level was not where it needed to be. And a lot of criticism has been on the offensive line, a position that he knows very well. One that you can make over in the transfer portal pretty quickly, though. I think that this was a move, removing the insulation maybe. I hope Sam Pittman gets another year.
This is the sacrificial lamb. Let's be honest with you.
I mean,
this was the opportunity saying, hey, Hunter Yurachek, it comes to Sam Pittman, probably says, we need to make some change. And Sam Pittman probably is like, all right, well, I'm going to have to do this. I felt like you went with Dan Enos because he was the comfortable selection. You knew who he was, not because necessarily he was the best offensive coordinator out there or for what they needed at that point. And I think this firmly puts Sam Pittman on notice that next year has to change, or there'll be bigger changes in Fayetteville. I don't think that he's lost that team. I don't think that he's even lost the fan base. They're frustrated
They've
as
lost
hell.
some of the fan base. How much negativity have we had to hear on here with guys calling in about what's going on?
But to Peter's point, they've been competitive in every single game. They're not getting blown out of the stadium, and so it's real painful to lose these games. I mean, look at the way they played in Baton Rouge. Look at the way they played in Tuscaloosa. I mean, this team is fighting for 60 minutes, but you're right. At some point, you have to win football games. You have to show progress on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think any of us predicted that Arkansas would be in this position right now, but here we are. Meanwhile, kudos to Zach Arnett and his defense.
Agreed.
I mean, that's a really good defense. With all the issues they've had on offense and completely having to change your identity from Will Rogers to Mike Wright, defensively, those guys have played really good football so far this season.
And we start with a good win for Mississippi State, but I want to flip it on the other side in this State-Arkansas game that was over in Fayetteville, where the Arkansas Razorbacks, frankly, hadn't played a home game, and it felt like, 5-6 weeks? Did they even know how to get back to the stadium? And Mississippi State
We weren't sure Woody
How
Marks
about
was
that?
even going to play.
Yeah.
He got the touchdown there, and the only touchdown of the ball game. Arkansas had a hard time blocking that Mississippi State defense all day. KJ under pressure. The Hail Mary doesn't hit.
Thumbs down.
That's the was that Caesar? That was the
like-
judgment.
Do the gladiators let them live or die?
Should
They're
we
like,
let
thumbs down.
Dan Enos stay or no?
It was a thumbs down, according to the Arkansas Razorbacks official Twitter account, saying Coach Pittman has relieved Dan Enos of his duties. One of our favorite people to chat with, one of the best, Clint Sterner, Dirty Red, joining us. Man, the hair's looking good. He's got some Macklemore thing going on right now. I like it, Dirty Red.
Hey, I gotta hang on, fellas. You know what I mean? Hey, you two guys of anybody, y'all know what's going on here, man. We got some good hair on this set right now, y'all. Come on.
Hey,
High and tight, baby.
My
High and
guy
tight.
Clint he's battling the two little ones too, man. How's the family, bro?
Yeah.
Man, the second one's not here yet, man. Baby girl number 1 is 20 months, and she's doing great, man. She's healthy. She's happy. Mama's pregnant again right now, going on about 8 months of it, so she's struggling a little bit, but we're loving it, man. Being a girl dad is phenomenal. Y'all know that.
No doubt.
Oh, no doubt about it. Who's struggling more, Mama Sterner right now or this Arkansas offense, if you had to say?
Ooh, that's I hadn't thought of that. I may use that this afternoon on radio, but I would say the Arkansas offense. I mean, we at least got a plan over here in the Sterner household, that's for sure. So I would go with my wife Lauren right now.
Let's go back to the offseason when Kendall Briles departed and looking for a new offensive coordinator. Kind of a weird hire with Dan Enos to begin with. They pulled the plug on that experiment. What are your thoughts about the decision there initially to go with him and what you've seen from the offense to this season and where they go from here going forward?
Well, look, Chris, I thought it was a huge roll of the dice simply because of the personnel that was in place. I mean, you look at KJ Jefferson, and I've been saying this for multiple years now. KJ Jefferson is a hell of a quarterback. There's no doubt about it, but he's very unique. The skill set is different. The skill set fit what Kendall Briles did really, really well. He obviously is athletic and he can spin the ball around the park when you simplify things in the pass game. And that's been the plan with Kendall Briles. That's how he's just, he's stacked the stats over the last handful of years. And you bring Dan Enos in, and he's more of a pocket passing, progression style offensive coordinator. And I said it to start the season, guys. This is either going to be an awful season, and you're looking at a 3 or 4 win Arkansas team, or that marriage between Dan Enos and KJ Jefferson is going to be unbelievable, and they're going to win 9 or 10 games. Well, it looks like I may have shot a little short on the downside, because I don't know if they're going to get to 4 wins, if we're being honest. So. Look, I liked it from a developmental standpoint for KJ Jefferson, but it was definitely an interesting hire in terms of the fit for the quarterback and really the lack of skill players that Arkansas had coming into the season.
Clint, how does Sam Pittman regain control of this team, this fan base, and say, hey, let's circle the wagons here, yes, sir, and have a good end of the year and then successful next year?
Well, Peter, look, there may not be no next year if they don't turn this thing around. I mean, they still got a chance to get to bowl eligible, although now it's a long shot. You've got to win out. I mean, they've got to show significant improvement on the offensive side of the football. Guys, what we were watching at Arkansas was just flat-ass unacceptable. I mean, we're talking about the inability to run. I don't know, Chris, what'd y'all call it back in your day? In my day, it was just all hitch. Mm-hmm. Line up 4 wide receivers. Everybody runs a 5-yard stop. The quarterback finds a soft spot in the zone or the soft corner and gives it up. We've got receivers running on top of each other. We've got them trying to run pick routes versus man. The receivers are running into each other. The offensive line can't block. The running backs are blowing protection after protection after protection. And so to answer your question, Peter, I think the only way that Sam Pittman can hang on to his job ultimately is for them to win out and be bowl eligible. They have got to show significant improvement on the offensive side of the football. And if they do, the truth is this defense is good enough to win you 4 straight.
Yeah,
I just don't know if the offense can be that good, Peter.
I do want to talk, Clint, positively about the defense here in a minute, but just the offense, you can blame Dan Enos. You ultimately blame Sam Pittman for hiring Dan Enos, but How did the roster get to this point where they're so deficient on the offensive line, where the receivers, they don't really have any real explosiveness, or the utilization of those guys is not necessarily to any of the downfield passing we've seen? The running game, one thing we thought was a staple of this offense, we haven't been able to see, and there's rumors that we may not see Rocket Sanders the rest of the year. I mean, how did we get to this point on the offensive side with the construct of it?
Well, let me be clear. Rocket Sanders is not going to help this football team. And I know that sounds crazy because he's a preseason All-American and all this, but Rocket Sanders is not the electric, elusive back that can overcome an offensive line that's leaky, or a pass game that can't help you at all, or a quarterback that doesn't want to run the football for whatever reason. That he's not that caliber guy. So first and foremost, the Rocket Sanders is a great back, but he's not the guy that you're going to plug in and boy, all things are going to be better all of a sudden. The question of how we got to where we are right now is I think you hired an offensive coordinator that didn't fit the personnel, and I think you spent the majority of your offseason and a good, let's say, half of the 7 ball games they've played so far worrying about, well, we've got to protect our quarterback. We don't want to run our quarterback, and you never established what your identity was going to be. Chris, we've all seen an offense full of big-bodied wide receivers complement a big-bodied quarterback in the run game and have a possession pass game and do some really good things. But you got to know who you are. You got to have an identity. You can't go in there week in, week out trying to decide whether you want to run your quarterback or do you want to risk your quarterback getting injured. You got to have an identity, and they don't have that. I'll say this, Chris. This Arkansas roster is nowhere near as bad as 2-5.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I've seen it. How many one-loss game or one-score losses that they've had? They have fought pretty much every single game, although they did look a little listless, weird over there in Fayetteville. I want to flip it real quick. You had something to say there, Clint?
Well, no. I've heard that stat being thrown around quite a bit, but guys, that's what bad teams do. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you're losing to BYU and you're losing to a struggling A&M team and you're losing to one of the worst defenses in college football, or let's say SEC in Mississippi State, when you're losing to those kind of football teams by 1 score, it's because you can't run all hits. It's because you get down, it's 3rd and goal from the 4, and you got man defense, you got a pick route called, and your receivers are running into each other. That's exactly how you lose one-possession ball games. Your head coach, I mean, the one thing you do have is Cam Little. He's a hell of a kicker. 50-plus field goal is nothing. I mean, you get into 4th and 4 in a 7-3 ball game in the 3rd quarter where your offense looks like trash, and you can't decide whether you want to kick a field goal or not. That is how you lose one-possession football game. So while I think that stat is. I think it's mind-blowing, but guys, that's how you lose one-possession ball games.
On Dan Enos, first thing I want to say is Dan worked extremely hard, was in the building all the time, put a lot of hours into it, and things of that nature. It just wasn't working, and so yesterday morning we decided to make a change there, or not a change, but go ahead and let Dan go. And then yesterday afternoon yesterday after that, briefly after that, I had a meeting with the offensive staff and called a lot of recruits. We're going to have Kenny Guyton move to quarterbacks, and he'll call the plays, and Derek Keefe will be the wide receiver coach. He obviously was in that system at Alabama, and so that would be that. I've been in meetings yesterday and today with the offensive staff. We're trying to eliminate some of the volume that we have offensively. Obviously, it was important that we stayed in-house so we wouldn't have a lot of terminology and things. We got to give our kids a chance to win, and it just seems that nothing ever came easy for us this year, and we've got to do some things differently, and one of it is cut down the volume that we have, and so I've been meeting with those guys all morning on that, and we'll go from there.
Coach, why do you think it didn't work? I mean, you talked about volume here just now, but what else played into it just not being a fit?
I think a lot of coaching has to do with enthusiasm, spirit, wanting to run through a wall for different people, and we just really never had that on the offensive side of the ball. If you look at it defensively, there's a lot of that there. I think you can get guys to play better than maybe even what their talents are if they believe in you. And to be honest with you, until this season, that has been I think, a positive about me, that guys seem to want to play and those things of that nature. And they've got it going on defense, so I know that's possible to do. We have a lot of similar players that we've had in the past. It just never clicked, and it really never did. And so this is not a move for any other reason than it just wasn't working, and it's not a move to can the season. We've got a really good defense. If our offense can go out and function well, we still have games that we can win, and we need to. And so I can't really put a finger on it. It was just rough. Our kids weren't as motivated, and that can go on me as well. Our kids weren't as motivated to play as what I have seen in the past. And, I mean, you could tell the way we took the field on Saturday that it was like, and I can remember being on the headset going, what are we doing? I mean, it's almost like a bum, 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 as we're going out there. And we were in the game the entire game. It just didn't feel like it. And and I'll give Mississippi State had a great game plan and all that, but we didn't adjust. And so that would be the only thing. We've lost our spirit, and there's a lot to be said about that.
Sam Pittman is catching a lot of heat, and what do you do when people put you on the hot seat? You fire your offensive coordinator. Dan Enos lasted 8 games. He's had more jobs lately. He was at Alabama. He went to where'd he go from Alabama? Miami? He may have had another job somewhere, but he doesn't have the Arkansas job any longer. It will cost Arkansas nearly $4 million to get rid of him. What did they get? Nothing. Blake, before you go, there's so many other developing stories in the SEC. You have, not developing Jimbo Fisher as a continuum. You have this, Shane Beamer's season imploding. And the one I want to ask you about is Sam Pittman, probably the most liked coach in the SEC, suddenly looking clueless after the game, to say nothing of the 60 minutes during the game.
Right. That was pretty stunning for Sam Pittman to say he froze up in that fourth down situation, which he could have kicked a long field goal, didn't know what to do. And instead of calling a timeout to give himself more time, he took a delay of game and took him out of the situation and had to punt. And, normally when coaches screw up, they don't have the humility or the honesty to admit it. And this is one case where I think the bald-faced truth was maybe not the best option, because all it proved was that Sam Pittman was out of his element in that moment. So there's two things I think Pittman has going for him in the face of this 2-6 record, and it does look pretty bleak right now. But there's two things he's got going for him. One is that strange clause in his buyout, where if he keeps his record above 500 since the start of the 2021 season. That clause excludes 2020. If his buyout or if his record stays above 500, which it's currently still 2 games over in that span, his buyout would be about $5.5 million more than if he were to dip below 500 since 2021. So that's working in his favor, number one. Number two, we know that every struggling coach has one desperate card in its hand it can play. That is fire the coordinator and pin the blame on that guy, and sometimes that works and buys you another season. And you can only play that card once. Sam Pittman hadn't played it yet until Sunday. He fired Dan Enos. And now, if Arkansas's offense can somehow find some life in these next few weeks, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not sure there's much reason to think it's going to happen. But if that does happen and the Arkansas offense rejuvenates a little bit, Dan Enos becomes the fall guy, and that narrative might work to help Sam Pittman get another season, get another chance to hire an offensive coordinator. Again, you can only play that card once, so even if it does work, Pittman better get his next offensive coordinator hire right.
Brandon, thank you very much. I want to give the audience just a slight break for a minute. We've been obsessing about Michigan, and I'll come back to that in a second. But you I about fell over when I read your tweet, I think, the other day about Dan Enos leaving Arkansas. And for those who may have missed it, I want to let you explain the cost of Arkansas hiring Dan Enos and firing him after only 8 games.
Yeah, we've heard about fully guaranteed contracts for head coaches. We've been hearing that a lot. Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. But do you know coordinators are starting to get that? Well, Dan Enos at Arkansas got that for leaving Maryland. He got a 3-year fully guaranteed contract worth $3.7 million. And as a result of being fired after just 8 games, he gets that entire contract paid out monthly in monthly installments for a total of $3.7 million. So he's getting nearly $4 million for coaching 8 games and picking up 2 wins, including one against an FCS team. Not bad work.
No. So on Sam Pittman, what's ahead for him? And he's already made the sacrificial lamb. That's usually what you do right after the season when the AD walks into your office. What happens now?
He needs to win some games, and they need to show some improvements offensively, obviously. He needs to show a clear vision for what the offense is going to look like in the future. You know, I thought it was a mistake from the get-go in hiring Dan Enos. You're going from a Kendall Briles system to a more pro-style system where you're upping the verbiage. And you had KJ Jefferson coming back in, which all the Arkansas contingent kept saying, hey, he might be a dark horse Heisman contender. You had Rocket Sanders coming back in the backfield, and yet you're not able to score a touchdown at home against Mississippi State, and you've lost 6 straight games. Absolutely atrocious offense. And Dan Enos, big reason why for that. They've got pieces there to score points and win games. And this offense just was not going to fit from the get-go. You look at Dan Enos' numbers from when he's at Maryland, even beforehand, among the lowest in explosive play rate. Arkansas was among the highest in explosive play rate under Kendall Briles in that veer and shoot system. I never quite understood the day and night change in offensive philosophy for the Razorbacks.
Takeo, where was the offense in Fayetteville?
Listen, Mississippi State, I tell you what, their defense dominated the offensive line. Boogie Watson ended up with 2 sacks. And as you kept looking at the game, it was almost like they played bully ball on the defensive side, blitzing at least 75% of the time.
Well, things have gotten ugly, folks, in Arkansas. The Hogs, 7-3 loss to Mississippi State, extended their Razorbacks' longest losing streak of the Sam Pittman era. And it also cost Dan Enos his job as offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. The Hogs managed just 200 yards of offense, turned the ball over twice, and allowed 4 sacks against the Bulldogs. It's not good right now. That offense has really, really struggled. Last in the SEC in scoring, yards per play, yards per game, 3-and-out rate of 30%. It's not good. They had to make a change, and they did. When you watch them play offense, obviously aside from KJ just under pressure all the time, I mean, where does this stuff begin? Well, is it up front?
You could easily point to up front. You could also point to an overhauled wide receiving core. Up front, you've got a bunch of new faces that you brought into the program. Those guys have not played well together. They've revamped that offensive front a couple of times. Your best player, probably the most versatile player that you had offensively that was available, was your true freshman tight end, Luke Hasz, who's going to be a great player in this conference. Lost him versus A&M. Rocket Sanders has not been available or not interested in playing or whatever. He hadn't been out there. That's a huge void. You're talking about a guy that's anticipated to be an all-conference performance, and you've got this distinct departure from what you were offensively. Before they were hyperactive, up-tempo, let's spool up plays, and it seems as if KJ Jefferson was more comfortable in that arrangement and in that type of philosophy. That's not who they've been through the first however many games now. This juncture of the season, it's time to make a change.
If you're the new offensive coordinator, wide receiver coach Kenny Guyton, the first thing that you do is you go to KJ Jefferson, you say, KJ, give me all of the plays that you like, right? And simplify things and figure out what is going to be the identity moving forward. As you mentioned, they have a lot of problems up front, but I go back to the Auburn time last year when Cadillac took over as head coach. He did a wonderful job. He was like, I know we can't throw the ball effectively. We're going to run it, period. And so he instilled that mindset, and I think this is the same type of mindset that you have to instill inside of this Arkansas offensive football team. Let them understand, simplify the game plan so they can go out and just try to do the best that they possibly can. Because when you look at what KJ means to this team, he's one of 5 SEC players ever to average 2,500 yards passing and then also 500 yards rushing. All of that is in jeopardy this year.
Yeah. Feels like he's been wasted.
Basically.
Year, which it's a senior season. He's been too big of a part of a program to have it wasted at this particular point. I don't know. How do you begin to approach the last 4 games? You talked about, you go to KJ, you ask what you want. What deems the last 4 games of this season a success? They're 2-6 right now. They've lost 6 in a row. What would you say at the end of this season, if you see this, good job, you salvage something?
Well, it's tough because it's not like you can just drop a penny in the well and just wish everything's going to change. That's just not going to happen. But if you got to pull some good out of it, and 5 out of the 6 losses that they had has been by a touchdown or less.
Right.
So defensively, they've been playing well, Stench. And for me, I just hone in on let's figure out our playmakers, and it starts with KJ Jefferson.
Yeah, the hard part is, can you stretch a defense? They don't have a lot of burners out wide. They got big, long receivers. Do you challenge your quarterback to say, just give these guys a shot? But you got to get the ball out of your hands. I think it got to the point this season, KJ was trying to do too much, trying to stretch plays too long. Now you got to just try to play within the framework of the offense.
Yeah, it was frustrating from the get-go with Rocket being unavailable and really has not contributed at all on offense here. Now, while their offense has been roundly criticized, it would be unfair to...
What about Georgia, Florida? Georgia, without Brock Bowers, still going to beat Georgia. I think it's going to be a tough game because this is Florida's Super Bowl. It's their championship game. They're going to come out there here on fire, but I like Georgia to win a close one.
Florida, much better football team than I think everybody thinks because of what they saw early from this Florida Gators team. So it's going to be tight. Can Carson Beck rebound after not having his best weapon in Brock Bowers? I believe yes. Give me the Bulldogs getting a big win at the cocktail party.
Florida are doing some nice things, but not nice enough to go ahead and upset the number 1 team in the nation. That's Georgia. I got to stick with Georgia.
He has Michigan at number 1.
Yeah, I do. But I do think Georgia wins this football game. But I think Florida is athletic enough, and I think they'll come into this game competing. That's why I picked them as a super dog. Rivalry game, neutral site, competitive game. Georgia wins.
This is old-fashioned hate. Georgia versus Florida, one of the biggest rivalries ever. It was that way before I got here. It's going to continue to be that way after I leave.
This is one of those games that you, as a competitor, you look forward to being a part of.
Mertz to the end zone. Touchdown, Jackson.
He's been very consistent. He's an explosive playmaker. Maybe the number 1 quarterback in the country for 2 games.
He's under the rest and buried. Jamal Dumas-Johnson.
They're physical up front. They're fast. They play a brand of football on defense that you can see when you're watching film.
That pass is high. Oh, what a one-handed grab by Pearsall.
It's a big game. They're always a really good team. Ranked number 1, and they're in the East. So, there's a lot of emphasis on Georgia.
If this game doesn't get you amped up to play football, I don't know what game will.
Let's make some picks here, okay? We're going to start with you, Roman Harper. Georgia or Florida? Who you taking and why?
Number 1, I love both of these sets of fans. I have a great time out here at the Vibes. I'll be back in the RV park after this.
Oh!
But first of all, Georgia's winning the game, point blank period. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead. Jordan, you go ahead.
Well, look, all has been made about no Brock Bowers, but this year more than any year, they're set up to make up for that loss with Dominic Lovett, Ra Thomas, Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint, Ladd McConkey, Carson Beck's going to play at a high level. Georgia's going to win.
All right, we got 2 picks for Georgia here. Still left to go. We got Paul Feinbaum and Tim Tebow. So we're going to let Paul go ahead.
Laura, since we are right here in Tebowville, I'm going to quietly pick Georgia and hand it off to you.
I'm sorry. You know what? This isn't really fair to Tim. We have 3 Georgia picks.
They just get ready, Florida fans. Get ready. Here we go.
Stop
Here's your boy.
You're mean. First of all, these guys know if you cut me, I would bleed orange and blue. So this sort of is disgusting. Laura just wrote this heart on here, but because this is what's happening in my heart, it's tearing apart because I'm picking Georgia's to stop it.
He literally turned the camera. Oh my God.
He walked off. He's done.
Jordan,
He's done.
console these fans.
Top-ranked Bulldogs, of course, without Brock Bowers facing off against the Gators. Everyone knows this one. Georgia, Florida, Florida, Georgia. Florida ball, first play of the game. Graham Mertz comes out slinging, pass complete to Eugene or Trey Wilson for 27 yards. Florida driving.
Yeah, they got a great kickoff return to start the game, good field position, and were aggressive with the passing game. Kind of picked up where they left off after the South Carolina game 2 weeks ago.
Same drive, 3rd and 6. Mertz finds Wilson once more, 25-yard touchdown pass and run.
Yeah, Florida came out trying to make a statement. We ain't scared of y'all. That's what they were saying. They drive right down the field, score a touchdown early. Georgia has to respond.
Georgia driving now. Beck finds Oscar Delp with a one-handed grab.
Brock who? We don't even know Stinking Brock.
I don't go that far.
You know Brock.
Great catch by.
Brock probably catches that and scores.
Exactly.
You knew he was cheering on the sidelines, too. How about now, Brock? Beck, finds Ladd McConkey for the 41-yard touchdown catch and run. He's fast.
Don't say the D word. That is not deceptive speed, Benjamin. I know what you're thinking.
Whatever. Nobody here can catch him.
Florida, 3rd and 5 now into the first. Mertz finds Khalil Jackson close to the first down line.
This might have been the play of the game right here. It was ruled a first down initially. They go back to review it. And unfortunately for Florida, it turns into a 4th and inches.
A great job by Kirby Smart. He was lobbying really hard for that one.
He's always lobbying.
So 4th and inches, direct snap now to Trevor Etienne, but stopped almost immediately, CD.
Yeah, it was an interesting play call. I thought Florida got a little too cute on a couple occasions, but even if they don't get pressure on Etienne, Georgia does a tremendous job. Watch how well disciplined they are. Mm-hmm. They have every receiver covered. That speaks to just how well coached this defense is.
So it would be a turnover on downs, Georgia ball, and they would capitalize. A few plays later, Dejon Edwards rushes right. That's good for a 20-yard touchdown.
Yeah, he was the bell cow back tonight, actually this afternoon, 95 yards on the ground. And that run game for Georgia is something that they've relied on for the last several years. They kept on relying on it tonight, too.
Mertz dropping back here, gets stripped by that Georgia defense. They force a turnover.
This was a difference in the ball game. Florida could not protect, had trouble all day long, particularly off the right side of the offensive line. 4 first-half sacks for the Georgia defense.
Next Georgia possession. It's 4th and 2. Edwards going to take this one and walk into the end zone for his 2nd rushing touchdown, 24-7. Dogs on top. Number 19 likes it. Middle of the 2nd now, 4th and 16. Florida's punt gets blocked. Ball goes out of the end zone for a safety.
Yeah, when things go right, they seem to go right, and I feel you, man.
Right.
I feel you. Hey, everything was working for Georgia. Even special teams.
Sounds like anger, man. Escalated quickly.
3rd and 11. Carson Beck now is going to find Ladd McConkey again. This one for 54 yards and a Georgia first down.
We wondered who was going to pick up the slack for Brock Bowers. We should have known it was going to be Ladd McConkey. Nobody took him in Saturday stud, too. What an error.
3rd and 4.
Exactly.
Beck again, this time going to thread the needle to Dylan Bell for a 17-yard touchdown catch, and Georgia wins their 25th consecutive game, 43-20, scoring the most points in the rivalry since 1982.
So the questions coming at Georgia this week were who's going to step up, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. And I think this Georgia team, especially offensively, said, you know what? This is 11 people that we put out there. Brock Bowers is great. We love him. But we've been practicing, too, and you saw that today. You saw Carson Beck, first of all, didn't get sacked. The offensive line protected him. He was upright. He was able to dish the ball to other players, Ladd McConkey, among others, Dylan Bell. You saw a touchdown from him. But they were able to run their offense, CD. perfectly without a hitch, even though they lose a guy like Brock Bowers. Played very well on third down as well.
Yeah, I picked Florida. I'll admit that I made that mistake. I thought Florida was not only going to have a chance to win the game, I thought it would at least be competitive, if anything. But to me, this was an illustration of just how far the gap is in talent between where Georgia is and where Florida is. And where Georgia is in most teams in college football, they are better. They have an incredibly talented group of players that's extremely well coached. They're all unselfish, and they do their job to the best of their ability. It's fun to watch. You can start on the offensive and defensive lines. Florida could not stop the run at all, and it wasn't anything fancy. It was just straight counter and inside zone plays, getting 10 to 12 yards every time they touch the ball. And then defensively, that Georgia defense, we talked about the swarming nature, the way they got after the quarterback today. I think this is just all about Georgia and really not about Florida right now. I was impressed with the way they handled their business today.
Yeah, 4 sacks on Graham Mertz today. You mentioned forcing their will, and you talked to these guys throughout the course of the week, Benjamin. They say this one's going to come down to play in the trenches, and it seemed like it did for Georgia.
It definitely did. I mean, Georgia's not a team. When you think about a team that gets a lot of sacks or pressure, I mean,
they second to last in the conference.
Exactly. They create what Kirby Smart calls havoc. They create havoc on quarterbacks, but they usually don't actually get there. And not only did they get there today, they forced turnovers when they got there on Graham Mertz. And then you see the complementary football. You know, we saw the special teams block for 2 points. It seems like this team, again, Kirby's made a smart, tough, physical football team that performs well under pressure. And that's what they did even after giving up a touchdown on that first drive to Florida.
Quickly, before we move on, what does Florida take from this?
Well, I think Florida, it's tough enough to beat a Georgia team that's as talented as they are. They had some mistakes that cost themselves. They got to play more cleanly, but I still think they have some really good accumulation of skill players. Again, I think the biggest difference right now is on the lines of scrimmage. They don't have the dudes up front to compete with Georgia yet, but you get Arkansas coming to town next week, and the schedule after that is very difficult. You got to go to Missouri, or you have LSU. You go to LSU, you got to go to Missouri, and then you finish with Florida State. So if Florida doesn't get things right again, they could be facing a 6-6 season.
For the first time in 40 years, mediocrity is the normal for Florida football. That, according to the Tampa Bay Times. Of course, we do not agree with that. We think the Gators still have a chance.
In South Florida, Tequio, Arkansas scored 3 points at home in their last game, fired their offensive coordinator. How many points do they score at Florida?
15.
Okay, more field goals. Stitch, best thing Florida did against Georgia.
More field goals. Opening drive.
You mentioned Billy Napier. I didn't quite understand what you were getting at there.
Well, I think it's great. You know, Florida's I think they've got a military appreciation thing going. It's pretty exciting this week. They're going to wear black uniforms, which I've heard some jokes about that. But listen, that's, you know, it's just something fans want. It's not like they're dressing for their own funerals. Listen, Arkansas's had a coordinator change here. And, you know, it had to be pretty bad for Sam Pittman to fire a guy in season. And so that tells me that there'll be a lift for the Hogs. I'm really looking forward to this Arkansas-Florida game. But I just start thinking, what happens if Sam Pittman and the Hogs beat the Florida Gators? Do the fans start getting on Billy Napier again? They've done what they can they were a well-rested team. They've gotten that knocked out. The travel schedules changed for road games. They figured that. I just wonder how many more tricks Billy Napier could have up his sleeve and what the rest of the season could be like when you look at their schedule if they don't beat Arkansas.
Yeah, that would put them after all the big wins they've had, that would put them in danger of not making a bowl, wouldn't it?
It potentially could, and that's obviously something that we're not accustomed to. You know, it's kind of interesting. This weekend to me is so fascinating because you've got, the Florida game against Arkansas, like we pointed out, an early start to the day. I mean, both of these coaches desperately need this. I hope Arkansas realizes what a fantastic coach Sam Pittman is. This has been a tough year for the Hogs.
I'm really intrigued by this game because obviously no more Dan Enos. They're changing the offense.
This is a tough ball game for Florida. Coming off the Georgia loss, you thought you might be ready to challenge the Bulldogs. You were not ready to challenge the Bulldogs. Now you come back against a dangerous team in Arkansas that's lost 6 games in a row. Change the offensive coordinator, as you talked about. You have no idea really who they're going to be. I know they're not going to come out and reinvent the offense, but in terms of play calling tendencies, or what are you going to do? Maybe run KJ Jefferson a little bit more, maybe get him outside the pocket, not have him be a sitting duck behind an offensive line that hadn't blocked for him all year long. Not sure why you continue to do that, but at any rate, this is going to be a challenge for Florida, and if the Gators don't come prepared and focused, they can lose at home in this one.
It's always interesting, too, because it feels, and maybe I'm going back by my fuzzy memory, but it feels as if anytime that there's a coordinator change, everybody just seems like it's almost like a breath of fresh air, a weight off their shoulders. Everybody plays extremely loose, and I feel like that's what's going to happen. I would be surprised if Arkansas doesn't come out being gangbusters in this game, and I think you see that, right? That Vegas only thinks this is a 4.5-point spread about a pretty talented Florida squad and a pretty listless Arkansas team the last time we saw.
That's the problem, is because everybody remembers that listless effort against Mississippi State.
It was
from 2 weeks
embarrassing.
ago. But really, if you go back before that, remember they took Alabama down to the last possession
one-score games
in Tuscaloosa. Played a bunch of close games, and you can say, well, they've been really competitive, or you could say, wow, they can't find a way to get over the hump when they're in one-possession games, depending on which perspective you want to take. The thing that was most surprising to me against Mississippi State, though, was the fact that there wasn't a greater sense of urgency, because I feel like these players have always fought really hard for Sam Pittman and played really at a competitive high level. Your point about Dan Enos is that now you have a different kind of voice calling the plays, and it does give you maybe more so than the idea of taking a breath. It's more of a shot of adrenaline, like, let's go.
And if you're Austin Armstrong on the flip side of it, like, how are you looking at tape of what to expect, right? I mean, like, okay, these are the players, but it's not like the scheme. I mean, would be surprised if the scheme is 100% the same.
The scheme's not 100% different, but it is different tendencies and different ways of going about being aggressive with the play calling. And if you are Sam Pittman, you got nothing to lose in this one. Let's just go let it all hang out. Let's see if we can't pull a win off. And maybe the thing that I'm most curious about, Rocket Sanders. I was in Little Rock this week, as I said. A lot of people don't expect him to play the rest of the year, but the word was that he practiced this week, and he's going back to his home state of Florida. So you think we see some Rocket?
I hope. I would like to see that, because I think ultimately, when it came down to it, he was one of the most dynamic running backs that we saw in this conference. And so for him to not be at 100%, not to be available, I think that was just one of those things that KJ Jefferson needed his Robin, and he hasn't had the Robin. And just Batman.
Where's Robin?
Batman on his own.
Where's Robin? We need Robin.
I appreciate anyone who goes out on a limb. It's so easy just to be prosaic and pick the favorites every week. But I am curious what you saw in Florida that almost nobody else did last week.
Yeah, Paul, I think it might have been a little bit of the hopefulness, the Gator in me maybe, believing in some of the things I wanted to believe and letting that cloud my vision. I thought that Florida had closed the gap a little bit with where Georgia was, but it's not a crime. There's a lot of teams that still have a chasm between where Georgia is and where the rest of the teams in the East are. It'll be an interesting game this week, and I know we'll talk about Missouri, but every time a team in the East tries to challenge Georgia, they pat them on the head and send them packing with double-digit wins over Kentucky, double-digit wins over Florida. So I do think maybe it was just me seeing some of the signs of growth in the program, wanting to be optimistic as a Florida grad, and maybe getting a little caught up with the Homer news that living in Gainesville sometimes leaks out. But at the end of the day, I think it was a great flex of the muscle by Georgia just to repeat just how dominant they are right now in this league.
Well, I'm sure nobody has mentioned it until now, so I wanted to be the first.
I appreciate you bringing that up.
Arkansas is in Gainesville taking on the Gators. What happened?
Yeah, kind of an opposite perspective for me, because I'm actually incredibly worried about this game for Florida. You come off the loss against Georgia where you're dismantled, maybe a little humiliated. You put a lot of emotion into that game, and certainly it's a physical game anytime you go up against Georgia. And you're playing against the team in Arkansas that's lost 6 straight games. They have nothing to lose at this point in time. They're backed into a corner, come out, play dangerously. Oh, by the way, with a new offensive coordinator, not that they're going to overhaul the offense, but what are the play calling tendencies? What is Kenny Guyton going to have up his sleeve? What are some of the things that he can use KJ Jefferson differently? I think that's the thing that I'm most interested in. Do they get him involved in the run game more? Do they use him outside of the pocket a little bit more? Do they take away some of that sitting duck kind of feeling behind an offensive line that hasn't blocked well for him this year? Those are the things I think you're going to give Florida a hard time. At the end of the day, Florida's played really well at home this year. I think they get the win, but I think it is a much closer, much more challenging game than a lot of the Florida fans think it'll be.
In the West, there's another program, the state of. That's Arkansas. They've lost 6 in a row. Okay, you talk about frustration building in Kentucky. It's really building right now in Fayetteville. State of the Hawks.
Isn't Arkansas kind of the same story as South Carolina, where they probably won too much too soon? Sam Pittman came in and took over a program that was in a mess and turned it into a competitor in just a couple years. Now, all of a sudden, the expectation level's higher, and you're not living up. You don't have the leadership at the linebacker position. Those guys were the heart and soul of the last couple seasons. The offensive line, you can depend on them. You get the run game. We talked about the best quarterback-running back duo maybe in the country with KJ and Rocket. They've just been unable to really get much traction this year because of the offensive line. It has been incredibly disappointing, and the biggest thing right now, I'm starting to feel apathy. And when apathy sets in amongst the fan base, that's a dangerous emotion or lack thereof to have.
And the sad thing about it is KJ Jefferson is one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league, in the entire nation, when he's on point and when he's protected. The problem is, as you mentioned, CD, an O-line coach in Pittman hasn't been able to get the O-line to protect their quarterback. And another thing when it comes to the offense, the wide receiver core. Last year, they got a couple transfers in. Those transfers stepped up, seemed to mesh perfectly with what KJ and the offense was trying to do. This year, however, it just hasn't worked out. They end up firing their offensive coordinator. They've got the last total offense in the entire SEC after being pretty respectable last year. And so just a lot of disappointment there for Sam Pittman. Early when he was there, I think you're right about setting the expectations, but now it's kind of the reality in Fayetteville.
Not been good. 2-6, going to a place they have never won.
Schedule does them no favors the rest of the way.
Every single year it does them no favors.
Well, they always have one of the toughest. They're in the SEC West, which by nature is going to be a tough one.
There's, for sure. Arkansas trying to figure this team out. 6 straight losses, and now a new offensive coordinator. It's Kenny Guyton. Here's head coach Sam Pittman as we go inside the SEC, presented by Auto Owners Insurance.
There's a little different feel in the building. I think everybody is taken to Coach Guyton. I think everybody's excited for him. But it'd be hard to say. I'll know a little bit more, how we adjust to the new offense and things of that nature. Or the less offense, I guess would be a better way to say it. With Kenny and his new role and things of that nature, I'm trying to take any type of added pressure that he might have off of him.
All right, so you never know what you're going to get, right? Bye week, new offensive coordinator, no more Dan Enos, in comes Kenny Guyton. At Florida, they've never won at the Swamp. What do we expect from Arkansas offensively? Do we have any idea?
I expect a close game, and I think this is a dangerous game from Florida. And I don't think you agree with me, but I am terrified by this game because I think all of the things you mentioned, they've lost 6 games in a row. They got nothing to lose. They're coming off a bye week, and oh, by the way, they fire their offensive coordinator. I know they're not going to install a whole new offense, but there are tendencies with which you look at a play caller and say, all right, this is what they like to do in 3rd and short. This is what they like to do on 1st downs. You have no idea where Kenny Guyton's coming from, and that makes him a dangerous team for Austin Armstrong, the defensive coordinator, and for the entire team in general.
I think it makes coaches a little nervous when they put together a game plan, but this Florida team has been pretty good at the Swamp, 9-2 at home at the Swamp under Napier, and so that bodes well for Florida. But for Arkansas, you're not going to put in an entire – let me just enlighten some people on how it works in a bye week. You're not able to put in an entirely new offense, even if you have a new offensive coordinator, because a lot of the things that the guys know how to do, you've got to keep some of that terminology the same. Yeah. You're going to keep some of those concepts the same. And when I look at this Arkansas offense, especially, I don't know where you're going to throw reliably at wide receiver. Rocket Sanders has been hurt. This is a rushing offense that was top in the league last year, has really, really struggled. They're last in a lot of categories this year. And so while there's some excitement, and there should be, and you hear KJ talk about how excited he is to everything's kind of fresh, I worry about this Arkansas offense going against a Florida defense that kind of knows who they are. Florida has an identity. Arkansas is still trying to find theirs.
The misuse of KJ Jefferson is the biggest error. They got to move him around a little bit more, get him in the run game involved. I think that's where you're going to see.
How do you do that, though, when he's constantly running for his life?
He's sitting in the pocket behind the offensive line. He's a sitting duck. They can't block him. Why would you put him in the pocket over and over again?
He's not even a sitting duck, CD. He's a running duck because as soon as he gets the snap, he's got somebody attacking him.
Yeah, it's been bad. From day one, almost. It's been bad for Arkansas this season. All right.
Gear Up is back again for Week 10, showcasing the latest and greatest new uniforms. For the first time in school history, the University of Florida is wearing all-black uniforms, which debut during their Saluting Those That Serve game. Each player's nameplate will display one of 5 words that exemplify service members' core values. Let's hear what head coach Billy Napier had to say about these alternates.
Really want to create awareness and show gratitude and appreciation for these people who chose a life of service.
How about the Razorbacks against the Gators? Is this going to be a newly inspired Arkansas offense? Obviously, Dan Enos out the door. Kenny Guyton takes over. They've decreased the playbook 30% in hopes of going faster, more tempo, play quicker, try to create an advantage. Florida's a better team, but Arkansas maybe shows up with a little something to prove.
Let's go to Ben Hill Griffin Stadium as Florida gets ready for Arkansas. Big opportunity on both sides, a bit of desperation even on both of these teams. Here's Taylor McGregor with Billy Napier.
Coach, what does your defense have to be prepared for early as Arkansas has a new first-time play caller?
Well, I think we got to be prepared to adjust. I think it's be important early, that we get a good pulse on what they're trying to do. An open date, new coordinator. But they've got good talent. The quarterback's a special player, so it's going to be a challenge. It's part of the story today. And our ability to adjust to what we get is going to be important.
After a big performance by Trey Wilson last week, what's the next step for him in this offense?
Yeah, I think Trey's developing as a route runner. I think he's a really good run after catch, try to create touch opportunities, but the full route tree, inside and outside, I think he's learning how to play without the ball. But just confident, being comfortable. I think the more experience that he gets, the better football player he's going to be.
How awesome do the black unis look? You're the only one who's seen them so far.
Yeah, no, I think it's we're getting behind a really good cause. Excited about saluting those who serve. The military appreciation aspect is really important. And certainly that's what we want it to be about. It's cool to wear the uniforms, but I think the military appreciation piece is really important.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, as Taylor and Coach said there, excellent cause. Also, great unis, Tim. You love the all-black uni, don't you?
I do. I'm excited for them.
We're going to see it a little bit later.
Have you seen them?
Yeah, I know he said no one's seen him, but I've seen him. So actually, it was also on SportsCenter this morning. So,
I mean, you're kind of a big deal in those Florida circles. So, Paul, I don't know that anyone really expected Florida to come out and beat Georgia last week, except for maybe Reese Rutledge. But anyway, Georgia was dominant. Now this week matters in a big way for Florida. How would you describe that?
Well, this is a transition game for them. They have to win the game because they've already lost to Georgia. They've lost a couple of other times. They're at LSU. They still have Missouri. They still have Florida State. If they don't win this game, they're running out of chances to win and maybe get to a bowl game. So I think it's essential. On the other side, it's just a matter of playing out the string, trying to figure something out, and maybe stealing a win somewhere. But the heat is on Billy Napier today to win this game.
I think it's a little bit of a desperation for both teams in different ways, right? Yeah. I mean, when you look at Arkansas, sometimes, and we were talking about this earlier, sometimes a coaching change, a little scheme change, like I mentioned, they're decreasing about 30% of their playbook. They're going to play faster, try to create an advantage, which they hadn't been doing.
Yes.
Sometimes that creates a little extra juice. I know the Swamp is a hard place to play, but it really Arkansas has been a tough out for a lot of teams. They're still
look
very
at Alabama, all these games.
I mean, so this is a dangerous game for Florida.
Yes, it is. There's no doubt about it. And I think something else to bring up is, Florida's been doing a really good job in recruiting.
Yeah.
And to keep that momentum, you got to win a game like this, right? There's going to be a lot of recruits there this weekend and for the next few weekends. And so this is so important for Florida to continue to stay relevant in the recruiting game with so many good players because they are in a building year. But they got to be able to get enough really good guys to take the next step for next season.
Yeah, you see the rest of the schedule here for the Gators. And, look, there's Arkansas. You're still at LSU. That's a tough one. Missouri, we'll see what Missouri does today against Georgia, and then, of course, that FSU.
But what a chance to just play spoiler.
Yeah,
against any number of these teams. If LSU wins, going to be a huge one. If Missouri
especially that last one.
Wins, and then Florida State, are you kidding? Could knock them out of playoff contention.
So on the Arkansas side, Roman, we mentioned it. They've played a lot of teams really tough, and Arkansas fans are so tired of hearing that because they're a really proud fan base. But there is something there maybe going forward in your mind?
Arkansas, look at me. If you have eligibility, come back. Arkansas, come back. None of you guys improve your draft stock for real, so don't worry about that. Don't get too far ahead of yourself. Come back. You can be this year's version of Missouri because Missouri was a team that lost a lot of close games last year, didn't find out how ways to win. This year, don't worry about it. Wash it down. Come back next year. KJ, come back. Lead this team. They can look a lot differently. They can be next year's version of what Missouri is this year. That is what I believe Arkansas could be.
I love the message. And if you're wondering at home, like, okay, KJ Jefferson, can't possibly keep playing. He actually has another year of eligibility.
You guys literally questioned it like there's no way. I'm like,
there's no way.
COVID. Everybody come back.
Okay, all right, let's pick the game. Arkansas or Florida, Paul? Go ahead.
Yeah, I really like Florida here. I just don't think Arkansas has much left in the tank.
Okay.
I think what's lost in Arkansas's struggles, especially offensively, has been how much their defense has improved.
Agreed.
They're getting after the quarterback. They were one of the worst pass defenses in the entire country last year. They're improved on the back end, and for some reason, I feel like they're going to show up to the Swamp a little inspired.
Ooh. Whoa.
And Sam Pittman and KJ Jefferson going to have those boys ready to play.
Okay.
I'm going Arkansas.
Let's go.
I'll tell you, I think Florida has to show up inspired. We just showed their schedule going down the stretch. It's going to be extremely difficult. But playing with 90,000 behind you in the Swamp, they got to play with a lot of pride. This is going to be a tough game. I agree. Arkansas is going to show up, and they're going to play well. Florida has to show up, and they got to represent in those unis because they'll look sweet, but they better play that way. I think Florida gets it done.
I got new unis for Florida, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Get to pick your own little thing on the back, whatever that is. At home for Florida?
Yeah.
I'll take Florida, no doubt about it. Florida's a different team at the house. Arkansas, they're good. They should be better. I hope they're better. And at the end of the day, come back. Everybody come back. But I got Florida.
It's about the future for
It's
them.
about the future.
Listen,
come back.
I will say, if you're right, we're running that back, okay? Because it's quite the prediction.
The biggest story in this matchup between Arkansas and Florida here today is what will Arkansas's offense look like for two different reasons. They have Kenny Guyton, a first-time play caller, and Rocket Sanders will be back playing today for the first time in over a month. As far as this new offense, Arkansas wants to go up-tempo. They want to get back to who they were a year ago, and they also want to get KJ Jefferson out in space to be able to make plays with his legs. Now for Florida, Austin Armstrong, defensive coordinator, says he's lost a ton of sleep trying to prepare for what Arkansas could potentially do. Important for them on defense to note, Shamar James is out for the rest of this season with a knee injury. He's the team's leading tackler and a huge leader on this defense. So the question becomes, who will step up in that leadership position for Florida as they'll have to adjust to what Arkansas is doing early.
And they're in Gainesville, 14 minutes to kick off over on ESPN2. KJ Jefferson, Roman's saying he's got to come back. He's got another year of eligibility.
Come back.
Hey, listen, it would go a long way in whether they're coming back or whatever's going to happen for this Arkansas team if they could get an upset on the road against Florida. This Florida team looking for a lot of answers as well. As Rocket Sanders, it looks like he may finally play, guys.
Yeah, and they're going to need him. They have a deep group of running backs, but they need Rocket Sanders. They need KJ Jefferson in the offense to play fast. Get the quarterback runs involved. Play with tempo. Get the RPOs back into this offense. They've disappeared.
And let's just remember for a second what it's like when this offense has Rocket and when they have KJ playing at a high level. They have been really, really good with these two leading the helm for a long time. It's just the last couple of weeks with the camaraderie, with the health, with a lot of different things, and now you got a new OC. It's a big change.
Yeah, reminder, Dan Eno's not there. Go ahead, George.
There's those black unis. Okay.
The back of his shirt says excellence. Again, it's honoring the military. Really a great gesture by Florida. Black unis look sick. I
think they look pretty sweet.
I like them.
Hey, and Roman, Graham Mertz just needs to flush what happened last week, right?
You can't control it anyways, and understand that he's played really well all year long. And this has actually been the best version of Graham Mertz since he's been in college.
Yeah.
Remember that part.
No doubt.
You didn't just forget how to play football out of a sudden out of 1 week. Georgia just played better. It's okay, and you got to have a big opportunity right here in front of you versus the Arkansas team, who, like Jordan said, is a better defensive team too. So you better bring it today.
Be a very big deal to get Arkansas's top ground gainer from a year ago back in the fold. An update coming in short order. Florida won the coin toss and deferred. The Hogs will get it first, coming off the bye week. The brand new play caller and perhaps new life for KJ Jefferson. Satania back deep to receive. The Gators will kick off with Trey Smack sending it deep. And KJ Jefferson set to come out on the field. A.J. Green will get the start at running back. And a little trickeration as Jefferson takes it, and wide open for big yardage for the Hogs. Right out of the gate, Ty Washington rumbles down the near sideline for 25. Hoping for some more mojo now with a new play caller. 5 of their 6 losses by a single possession. Off of play action, Washington integral in this opening drive. And he picks up another first down for the Razorbacks, a gain of 12. Thornton bumped him out. 5 in the box for the Gators. Jefferson under duress, throws a strike. Teslaw has it. He gets all the way inside the 10. It'll be first and goal.
KJ Jefferson sees the blitz, throws into it, and they get a big first down.
First and goal. Wide open is Green for the Arkansas touchdown. KJ Jefferson perfect on that opening drive.
And it's a great job by Kenny Guyton. You get double slants from the outside from that boundary.
Pearsall motions out, and he'll get the swing pass into the open field. And corralled after gain of 8, and the ball comes out, and the Hogs have it. Touchdown Razorbacks. Bishop stole it and takes it to the house.
What a tremendous job by Jalen Braxton. Just rips it out of the arm of Ricky Pearsall. And then it's all end zone from there. The true freshman who has been tremendous with his speed and cover ability.
Gators get it back. Their second play from scrimmage. And on the toss to Johnson, bottled up, driven down, a tackle for loss. He has been electric for Travis Williams in this Hogs defense.
One of the best edge defenders in the country. 6'7", got up to 280 pounds, showed power, agility right there.
Mertz leads the SEC in completion percentage, goes long and incomplete. And the receiver tripped up, Khalil Jackson. Gators have been fishing in red zone scenarios this season. Mertz play action, wide open is Johnson. The ball came out late, and let's see. They will rule it incomplete. Will they stay with 7? Wilson in motion. Etienne again tried to cut it outside and could not. Bottled up, he'll lose a yard. Roddy Jones, Roy Philpott. Sanders gets the call with a crease. And a good play on first down.
And coming out, and we didn't play fast on our third possession. We got to get back to attacking them a little bit more.
Thank you. Roy?
Taylor on third down. The Gators going to come up short to start our second quarter. There's Wilson in motion. Play action for Mertz. He's been effective already. And the pump fake could have been a lateral. Wilson brought down right at the line, and that was sniffed out by Hudson Clark, who's starting to play better. No gain on the play. Etienne in the backfield serving as pass protection. Mertz, pocket breaks down, and he goes down. Back at the 30. Eric Gregory.
It's a great job by John Morgan, number 6, of creating the penetration to force Mertz off his spot. And it's almost a party at the quarterback. Landon Jackson back there before eventually Eric Gregory is able to bring the quarterback down. Prince Lou Mamiellen is to the bottom of your screen at defensive end for Florida.
With a straight path, cut off in the last second. Jefferson goes long. Has a man, and it's caught for a first down. Andrew Armstrong. Jefferson threads the needle on third and long, and the Hogs suddenly in business.
One-on-one coverage, and Armstrong takes off down the field against Jalen Kimber. It's a nice job at the very end.
56 against Ole Miss a couple of weeks back. Well within his range from inside the right hash. Puts it up and puts it through. And Arkansas in front. Just the 13th all-time meeting between these two teams. Mertz feeling the heat, and Mertz brought down short of the 40. Seminoles could be in the playoff picture still at that point. Hand off to Johnson. And the Hogs up to the challenge. No gain on the play. The tackle by Carter. Hogs showed pressure. Now bring it. Mertz. Slant. No. And drop Boardingham again across the middle. Let's send you now to the studio for the halftime report. Arkansas and Florida tied at 17. This time it's Mertz out of the shotgun. Tunnel screen, and Pearsall, he dropped it, and with good reason, McClothern. Johnson, the running back, now receiver, bottom of the screen on 3rd and 10. Mertz looking the other way and floats one into Arkansas territory. Pearsall could not catch up to it. Indeed. 3rd and 6. Jefferson off the back foot. The crosser is there. And a first down. There goes Armstrong. Still on his feet. Wrangled down near the 26.
This was the big play on that 3rd down. It's just a nice delivery to Armstrong, and then not the best tackling effort from Jordan Castell, the really talented freshman. but Andrew Armstrong able to get down the field. Castell just takes a bad angle. And again, his freshman's been tremendous today, but that not going to be on his highlight film.
This attempt from 41. And just inside the left hash. Powers it up. And through. In terms of career passing yards with that throw. And his eyes on Tyler Wilson. Played in Fayetteville 08 to 2012. There's going to be some emotions in that one. Mertz just 3 for his last 9 passing under pressure. And he'll dive forward, trying to get back to the line of scrimmage. He's going to lose a couple of yards. Snacks Johnson again.
And he's going to have to come out of the. He's going to have to come out for this big 3rd down. That was a big hit right in the midsection for Graham Mertz.
Etienne, the running back. Pearsall in motion. And Trevor gets it with nothing available. Stopped at the line, no gain. Anthony Booker, a 3-point lead, trying to erase a 6-game losing streak. And the deep give, A.J. Green spun down, close to a first down, but stopped just short. Here goes Boardingham. Will fake it his direction, come the other way, nothing doing. That play was read.
Screens are such a big part of this Florida offense. This Arkansas defense has been all over them today. Florida's really got nothing going in the screen game, and a lot of that credit goes to the secondary reading, getting past the blockers of the blocks of the offensive linemen.
There goes Jefferson. He'll get the first down and a little bit more. Shoved out, crossing the 25. It's a gain of 15 on 3rd and 7. Marshall. Mertz thinking about it. Unloads deep. Pearsall has it. Pearsall. Touchdown. And a problem on the attempted hold. And it remains a 3-point game. KJ Jefferson in this Hogs offense. Not with a crosser. I'll answer the question for you to Armstrong.
Yeah.
Jefferson under duress. Throws a strike to Wilson. A first down for Arkansas. Empty backfield and a backwards pass. Tesla wants to throw it. The jump pass. End zone. Who caught it? Nobody. It's incomplete. A penalty marker comes in. Armstrong had it for a moment.
15-yard penalty enforced from the previous spot. Carries an automatic first down.
Pass interference to call. A 15-yard infraction on Devin Moore. 22-yard field goal attempt. And Arkansas, yet to hear much from Hayden Hansen. 89 in black uniform today. The tight end, former quarterback, swatted away at the last second and made an incredible defensive play.
It's a tight window. What a play, though, by Al-Fahim Walcott as he retreats, sees the ball, extends, uses all of that 6'2" frame.
Close losses this year, 5 of 6 decided by 1 possession. Will that trend continue today? The Gators hope so. Trey Wilson hopes so. Still on his feet. Ball comes out late and the Hogs jump on it. And let's see if they stopped his forward progress. Oh boy.
The ruling on the field is that the runner's forward progress was stopped. First down.
That was Jalen Braxton again, who had the strip and score back in the first quarter.
He's going full Peanut Tillman on us without the punch, but with the strip. I like the play design, but I think this is the right call. He stood up. He's not going anywhere. I don't know. He's kind of moving forward during that on replay.
Wilson has been so dangerous. Looking for Jackson. Contact. Pass sailed out of bounds and no penalty marker. It'll be 4th down. Jefferson takes off. KJ Jefferson moving on up. Upended at the 30. Sanders motions out. 4-man pressure. Jefferson escapes. First down, Hogs. All the way to the 48-yard line of the Gators.
Individual effort by KJ Jefferson. You're not going to bring him down with arm tackles. Princely.
Jefferson with all day. Wide open Sategna. First down, Hogs. Wilson now in the slot. Jefferson takes off again. KJ Jefferson. Touchdown, Arkansas.
I think this offense has their spirit back, Roy. First, it's the longest pass play of the day for Florida. It's a little dump off to Etienne, and he makes the magic happen, making a man miss in the open field, finishing with some physicality. Why not go right back to the running back after that? It's great blocking up front. Hole there on the left side. You get a hat on a hat, and Etienne able to stroll into the end zone. How about that response? 3 plays in the flash of an eyelid. I don't even know if that's a saying. Florida able to get into the end zone.
Jefferson, they'll set up the screen to Rocket Sanders with blockers.
Yeah, I like the no call there, actually.
Retreated late. Sanders the cut. Sanders a shimmy. And a first down. All the way to the 50. And plunging close to Florida territory, a 15-yard gain. We'll stop him at the 49. 2:30 to go. Jefferson wanted a lot. He'll settle for a little. 2nd and 1. Sanders, edge, first down. And a patient finish on the run, tumbling down inside the 30. Cross the middle. Pass is caught. Broden tumbles forward. That's to the 32, and that does put Arkansas in field goal range. On the way. And Cam Little from distance ties it at 33.
Can they make a play as it looks like man coverage?
Johnson motions out. Boardingham has it. First down, Florida. Gators in field goal range. Brought down to the 21. 8 seconds remaining. The clock will stop after the first down, and Graham Mertz just wants to spike it. And he does.
And Arkansas is upset because Florida substituted on that play.
Illegal substitution on the offense. The offensive players came out into a formation and then ran off the field and did not stay for one play. There is no 10-second runoff because the clock was not running. It will be 8 seconds on the clock. The game clock will start on my signal.
That is significant. And the kick on the way. Smack. No good. He missed it wide right.
Captain, what is your choice? Tails. The choice by Arkansas is tails. Here we go. It is tails. Arkansas, you have won the toss. Your choice is offense, defense, or into the field. The coach said you wanted to play defense, correct? Defense is going on defense. Which end are we going to play on? You want to play on this end right here? Put your backs over here, Arkansas, Florida. Florida will have the ball, 1st and 10 from the 25-yard line.
He'll fake the pop pass. Mertz play action, incomplete to Jackson. Hayden Hansen in motion. Run blocker here, Etienne. Corral short of the 20. Jackson thinking about a big play. Holds up for Mertz. The slant route incomplete, and it came out late. Just missed from 44 at the end of regulation. And on the way this time, and Smack connects. So the Gators back in front. Jefferson will keep it. KJ Jefferson, penalty flag comes in.
Holding on the offense, number 78. That 10-yard penalty will be enforced in the previous spot with a replay of first down.
And that's Joshua Braun, the Florida transfer.
See penalties be costly. The right guard, Joshua Braun, who's on the pull, grabs the inside.
Jefferson again, straight ahead. KJ Jefferson lays the wood. Rumbling down to the 15. And that's 240 pounds in motion. Hard to stop. Is that and then some?
It's 1st and 20. So midline read up the middle, and KJ Jefferson just makes it look like big boy ball against the freshman. For the first time, he just learned you don't go high on KJ Jefferson.
That's a gain of 20 and a first down on 1st and 20. Sanders, did he keep the play alive? He did. Sanders down to the 5-yard line. And the physicality of the Hogs offense on display.
Rocket Sanders, kind of the same thing. Doesn't go down. That hand hits the ground. Those feet hit the ground. It gets up the field to the inside the 5.
Jefferson, end zone for the win. Touchdown Hogs. Arkansas finds a way in the swamp. Tyrone Broden, the hero. And for the first time ever, the Razorbacks win in Gainesville.
It's a great delivery by KJ Jefferson. Down and outside, away from the defender. No shot for Devin Moore. A nice snag by Tyrone Broden. A walk-off for Arkansas in a game that they desperately needed. 6 straight losses coming into this one.
Sam, you needed a touchdown to win this game. What did you want to see out of your offensive play call to get this done?
Well, we needed to run the football there. That's the one thing we didn't do earlier in the game. We hadn't been running the football well inside the red zone. Boy, we did there, and KJ made a great run on 1st and long.
You guys have been so close all year. How did you get this one to finally put you over the top?
Well, I think the kids played their butt off. Kenny Guyton called a great game. The defense played well, but we just kept fighting. I mean, it's the first time in school history that we've beaten Gainesville, the University of Florida in Florida. Big deal. That wasn't a 2-6 team. We were 0-0, and we're trying to make a run, but I'm so proud of our football team.
I'm sure you'll have a cold beer, Coach. Congratulations. Sure. Right?
Great Southern Razorbacks!
Hey, let's give a shout out to Kenny Guyton. Come on. Turn it!
We have one happening in the swamp. KJ Jefferson gives Arkansas a 30-26 lead.
Early on in this game, Florida looked like they were playing in the Big Ten West. They got down 14-0.
It was quick, but then they came back. The game gave it to Trevor Etienne. 26-yard touchdown, Gator take the lead.
And he had a long reception on this drive to put him into scoring position and finish the drive off with a long touchdown run.
So Cam Little, game-tying field goal to force overtime. Draw it back like a Matt Berry drive.
And Little came up big.
Ties it at 33. Arkansas in overtime. Ball game wins it, and then they give us the tweet of the day.
That's an AI of how does an Arkansas person celebrate a win over Florida. I think that's what they created.
And it's kicking a Gator in the face, playing the Petty song. Won't back down. I love social media. Pettiness.
Speaking of Hogs, taking on Florida, Arkansas's lost 6 in a row. KJ Jefferson, AJ Green touchdown.
New play caller, Kenny Guyton, comes out right down the field for a touchdown.
They scored 3 points in their last game 2 weeks ago. Fired Dan Enos, elevated Kenny Guyton, and it was a different story. But how about the defense making a play here? Jalen Braxton, just rip it and score.
Travis Williams' defense has been electric this whole season. They've been aggressive. And what do you call it, a strip six?
Strip six.
Strip six. Oh, how about that throw?
Yeah, Trey Wilson, just a tremendous start to his freshman season, become the go-to guy on this Florida offense. Needs more touches, to be honest.
The go-to guy? Ricky Pearsall would like a word.
This guy, they give him the ball on the jet sweeps. They give it to him on the end arounds, the downfield passes.
Let's go to the third, shall we? Ricky Pearsall going to take a break from giving you his word and making a play.
Way to respond to Chris Doran, pretty Ricky.
Hey, Ricky's my guy. I love him. Just saying that all of a sudden the X Factor guy is Trey Wilson.
Oh, how about that little play there? A little fake, keep, KJ, touchdown.
This guy back involved in the run game, 92 yards on 17 carries, put the team on his back and carried them into overtime.
Yeah, and then there's Trevor Etienne, who's awfully good, 26 yards. Back and forth affair, they say. Cam Little with a big leg. Trying to force overtime, and he got it. That's 49-yarder. You don't see that.
Don't worry about it. I got it. I got it. Good.
Overtime. Florida had a field goal. KJ, Tyrone Broden, touchdown. 6-game skid, over. First ever win in the Swamp. Arkansas last in the SEC in total offense coming in. They go for 481 against a Florida team that, up until the Georgia game, had certainly shown signs that they were improving. What's the level of importance for them to get this one? Break that ugly skid and get a win in a place they never had.
Look, let's just be honest. It's tough for Sam Pittman right now. He's having to answer a whole lot of questions about should he be here, what's happening to this team. Kenny Guyton comes in. I thought he called a tremendous game. And what we heard from Fayetteville was that he was going to reduce the load upon, KJ Jefferson, kind of reduce what the guys have to understand and do what they do well. What do they do well? Yep. They run the football. This team runs the football well. You get Rocket Sanders back, 226 yards total in the run game for them. That's their highest output for the entire season. That's what this team is based on. And, oh, by the way, if you run the ball well with your quarterback, with your running backs, your offensive line must be doing something. You watch this offensive line that has been much maligned this year, haven't played very well. They were physical today. They established a run. It looked more like the Arkansas offense, honestly, that we're used to.
Yeah, the one we were expecting, right? Where KJ and Rocket complement each other in the run game. 192 yards rushing alone in the second half. That's almost 7 yards a carry, so just completely demoralized the Gators in the way they were able to run the football.
Yeah, they nice balance, too. 255 through the air, 226 on the ground. So they had it working, and props to Arkansas for that. Let's go to the Florida side of things. We thought things were getting better. They got thumped after the great opening drive against Georgia. Now you're like, okay, are they going to get to 6? Right? That's the question. They go to Baton Rouge, then they go to Columbia, then they host the 4th-ranked Seminoles. This is a difficult, nasty stretch, and they are, frankly, massive ESPN, at least, underdogs in all 3.
They were 5-2, right? And then you lose to Georgia. This was a game they had to have today, and it was one I told you guys that I was worried about just because of the spot and where it fell on the schedule. But the thing that stands out to me, they had a late season collapse last year against losing against Vandy, losing against Florida State, finished the season 6-6. This is a team right now that is trying to figure out how to win. And you know the Vince Lombardi quote, winning is a habit, unfortunately, so is losing. And so what Florida played at the end of the game was not winning football. When you miss extra points, when you can't execute a clock play, there's no reason to be substituting after you get that first down. Clock the ball, the clock stops, then you can substitute everybody in. You get the illegal substitution call. You miss the field goal there that could win it at the end of the ball game. You don't execute. You can't tackle. You have KJ Jefferson dead to right on a blitz on 3rd down. You let him run out of it. Those are little things that if you want to be a winning team, that you watch Georgia, you watch Alabama, those teams do that stuff. Florida right now doesn't know how to win. They haven't figured it out yet. Not sure if they can the rest of the way, but it's going to be a tough stretch.
You'd have thought the way they came from behind in Columbia and won that game a couple of weeks back against South Carolina might have been the, look, we just learned how to win a big game. But there's been 2 disappointments. Unfortunately for the Gators. What do you see when you watch Florida play?
Much of what you see, but also see kind of the little things. And it's not holding on to the football, not being secure with the football by Ricky Pearsall on that strip 6. That was a huge play in the game. And so it's those sorts of things that would get you beat. And then even looking all the way back at the Utah game where they had 2 number 3s or so on the field, seeing the same thing happen, and we're almost towards the end of the season. Those things haven't been cleaned up. So to me, when I look at that, that's not only players paying attention to details, that's coaches teaching it the correct way.
All right, so Florida falls to 5-4. Schedule nasty the rest of the way. Big win for Arkansas. They get their third of the season and snap the 6-game skid.